Further questions? Seeing none, we'll take a motion.
Move to recommend that the city manager be authorized to do all things necessary to negotiate and execute a construction change order with Incedoform Technologies, Inc. in the amount of $57,393 with funding provided by Project Cost Center 08066.
And I second.
It has been moved and seconded. Further discussion, members of the committee? Seeing none, all in favor? Anyone opposed? No one's opposed. Unanimous.
Thank you. Next item, item 6 on your agenda, is actually very similar to an item that Aaron was talking to you about earlier tonight. His project was an ARPA-funded grant at the wastewater treatment plant. This item relates to 5 other projects that were submitted through the state revolving fund. So a little bit more background on it. The city manager has made it pretty clear to us that she wants us to search out and apply for as much grant or principal forgiveness funding as possible, and we continue to do that. In 2021, we applied, in addition to Aaron's project, we applied for a total of 5 additional projects that are listed there in the motion, and then a little more detail in the table down below. Those were the sewer and drainage associated with the Main Street or downtown infrastructure project. So those 2 components of the downtown project were applied for under the program. The drainage lining program, which hasn't started yet, but it's going to be starting here in '24. That's sort of like the corollary to the sewer lining program that we talked about. It's been in the program, in the CIP for a number of years now, to add that same type of work for our drains. And that's almost getting ready to get started. We put into the funding request to the state to do that project as well. The sewer manhole lining, again, it's in the CIP. It's been planned for a number of years now. It begins in '23. That's a 5 or 6 year program to line all of the brick manholes that are in our inventory that tend to create a lot of groundwater infiltration. And then the sewer repair and lining is that annual program that we were talking about earlier. So we put all 5 of those programs into the state as requests. The 2 drainage-related projects scored very well and actually received both grant funding under the American Rescue Plan Act, that's the ARPA grant, as well as principal forgiveness. So the Clean Water State Revolving Fund is a loan program. It's really designed and intended to help municipalities fund either clean water, stormwater, wastewater, stormwater, or drinking water projects that I guess I'm preaching to the choir here, that qualify. They offer municipalities very attractive financing. Right now, that rate is 2%, and it helps municipalities, particularly smaller municipalities, fund these large infrastructure projects. One of the nice things about the program is that DES pretty often, almost always, offers those loans with a sort of added incentive in the form of principal forgiveness. So you take out the loan, but when you repay it, you only have to pay back. The last few years, it's been a 10% principal forgiveness. So it's an added incentive to do these important infrastructure projects. All 3 of our sewer, clean water, wastewater projects qualified on the state's prioritized list for the principal forgiveness. They didn't score quite high enough to also get ARPA funding, so that they don't get a grant, but they do get the 10% principal forgiveness. And another nice feature of that loan program is there's no prepayment penalty. So even projects that are intended in our CIP to be funded through capital reserves or current revenue, we can take out a loan, accept the loan money, have them write down the 10% principal forgiveness, and then pay it back a couple months later. And we've been doing that on a number of projects, and it's a way to save a little bit of money. So the item on your agenda here there's two items, actually. The first motion is to allow the city manager to do all things necessary to accept and execute those loan agreements. DES asked that we have that's something from the legislative body that specifically lists the loans that the legislative body agreed to enter into. And then also the second motion on your agenda is that the manager be authorized to do all things necessary to accept and execute grant agreements as they become available. The American Rescue Plan Act was one of two big federal infrastructure acts that were passed in the last year. The other one being the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. That Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act was the larger of the two. It's the $1.2 trillion, some enormous number. Has investments in a number of different infrastructure categories. We haven't really seen how that's all going to be distributed or gotten requests for funding under that program yet, but we're expecting that to start trickling down from the state. So the second motion is really about giving the city manager authority to go ahead and chase those grants and execute the grants as they become available.
Questions? Yes, sir.
Thank you. I'm definitely really happy to see that we're going after the clean water and drinking water state revolving funds. I know those are really competitive loans to go after, and I know that a lot of the communities in the southern tier are also very eager to get those, and I'm glad to see some of that money's coming out towards this end of the state. So thank you for all the effort going into these grants, which it looks like it's nearing $5 million.
So if you the loan amounts are listed in the motion.
Yeah.
If you flip to the second page, it's actually page 12 of your packets. It'll list out, in addition to the total loan amount in that second column, the two drainage projects received $285,000 and $276,000 of ARPA grant funding. That comes right off the top. And then the principal forgiveness that was offered by the state is listed in the fourth column on that page. And yeah, altogether, when you add all of that up, it's about $1 million worth of funding that the taxpayers are saving, and ratepayers, I suppose, but yeah.
Yeah, that's
great.
awesome. Thank you.
And I will say that, we continue to chase these opportunities. About a week and a half ago, we submitted the 2022 pre-applications on a number of additional projects for both drinking water and clean water.
Motion, please.
Finance Organization and Personnel Committee moves to recommend that the city manager be authorized to do all things necessary to apply for, accept, and execute loan agreements with the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services, NHDES, Clean Water and Drinking Water State Revolving Funds for the following projects. Main Street Flood Management, $951,100. Drainage Lining Program, $920,800. Main Street Sewer Rehabilitation, $710,500. Sewer Manhole Lining, $1,083,600. Sewer Repair and Lining, $1,081,395.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Further discussion, members of the committee? Seeing none, all in favor? It's unanimous.
Thank you,
Second
Mr.
part of
Chairman.
that.
Finance Organization and Personnel Committee moves to recommend that the city manager be authorized to do all things necessary to accept and execute any and all American Rescue Plan Act ARPA grants offered by the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services, NHDES, for city capital improvement program projects.
Second.
That has been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Anybody opposed? Unanimous.
And now I turn you over to our able-bodied assistant city manager.
Thank you, Don. Assistant City Manager, HR Director Beth Fox. Hope everyone is well this evening. I feel like I'm interrupting Don's role, so we'll try not to slow him down too much and see if we can get through this fairly quickly. But we're happy to answer any questions. They're here with two parts, a two-part item tonight. The first item is really in follow-up to, I think, the last item I was here before you with, which was an update to the salary ordinance. As you may recall, as we were going through the budget process, the manager talked about the budget providing a compensation for an assistant emergency management director, recognizing the increasing importance of continuity of operations and sharing responsibility with that role. The first section of the ordinance before you tonight to amend, which is 62-196, does a couple things. It first provides that annual additional sum for the staff member designated as assistant emergency management director. But then it also takes the sums that are related to the compensation for these positions, and instead of paying them annually upfront in advance of them having performed the work, which from an HR perspective seems like it could create lots of crazy problems, it will pay it out on a weekly basis while they hold those duties. So for some reason, and I don't really actually know historically why, but I suspect Councilor Powers could, these had always been lump sums paid in advance, but as we started talking about it and getting ready to submit it to the council, we said maybe it makes sense to make an additional adjustment at this time. We, have had fairly consistent service, but we could be in a position someday in the future where we have a change and the timing on a lump sum basis does not work in our favor, and it just seems like a problem to avoid. So that's the first code amendment proposed this evening. If there's any questions on that particular proposal.
So back in the good old days, it was very, very tight on money around here. There were no funds to be distributed, so it didn't matter if you wanted to pay them at the beginning or the end. 0 equaled 0. So this is progress.
Keep trying to move things forward, and sometimes it takes a while, but we get to where we're trying to go. The second item on the code adjustment proposed is to section 62-396, which really applies primarily to non-union employees that are holding positions in salary schedule 62-194. So those are the administrative office, technical management personnel that you see many of them here in front of you at City Council, and others work in a variety of departments across the organization. This is actually is a small adjustment, and it has, I think, two impetuses. The first impetus is to provide employees with a little bit more flexibility as they onboard to the organization. Our current practice doesn't provide them with vacation leave until they reach a 6-month anniversary, and we're finding that as a matter of course, people just are needing a little more flexibility in these times, and this gives us a very easy way to make that adjustment without always having to, every time someone has something that they need to address, trying to work out something and deal with it through making either an advance of time or some other kind of adjustment to their schedule so that we can help them meet their needs. So that's, I think, the primary impetus. We're really trying to, I think, simplify and provide employees with a little bit more flexibility. We also think it will help us a little bit as we recruit in a more competitive market. The code change also recognizes that to the extent that vacation determinations are made for council appointments, that is not the city manager's responsibility, but that of the council. So it carves that out of the language and is part of the amendments proposed. And I'm happy to answer questions and the committee.
Any questions? So I have one on B, on the back side, B section, and it talks about, I believe would be final compensation, but it says except on employment termination. that, to me, seems like the wrong word in that position in this sentence, but
I suspect that if I was to be amending that section today, I might say something like separation of service, which sounds kinder and gentler. I think in the day that that language was written, maybe termination was just the quick and easy way. I mean, its intent is really to say that as a matter of policy, we aren't going to pay you for your vacation if you don't use it unless you're leaving the organization, and then you're entitled to it. So.
everybody comfortable with leaving that word there? Okay. I'm the odd guy out again.
Yeah, it isn't a new word, but
I'll move to recommend the adoption of ordinance O 2022-06.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Further discussion? All in favor? Anyone opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you.
also like to thank the committee tonight for going easy on staff. Apparently, in addition to the city manager being gone, I didn't expect a few other people to also be missing, but we appreciate the quick meeting and the expeditious actions.
I'm back.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Don Lucier, City Engineer. Last item on your agenda tonight is actually related to item 6, which I talked about earlier. I'm not entirely sure why they're separated on the agenda. I think maybe the city clerk is punishing me. This one, we've been operating for a number of years under a resolution that the city council passed in 2009 that designated the city manager as the council's authorized representative to sign loan documents and disbursement agreements and yada yada. The DES asked that we update that delegation of authorities resolution. They, obviously it's dated. They noted that the city mayor has changed a couple of times since then. The city council has changed and whatnot. So you'll notice I gave you in your packets both the existing 2009 resolution and the proposed 2022 resolution. The language is very similar. There's been some changes to the DES's template language, but it's very similar. I also, this evening, left on your desks there a revised version of the resolution that we'd like to introduce as an A version, and that was by the request of the city attorney. Just maybe to help alleviate this problem in the future, he added a paragraph to the end that says that this delegation of authority to the city manager shall be in effect until rescinded. So that's the version that you have on your desktops. And the last thing I will note is next week at the council, we are going to be requesting that the council suspend the rules and act on this without a first and second reading. The reason being, we found out that the DES wanted us to renew this just in the last week, but the applications for the 2022 pre-applications are due by the end of this month. No, sorry. The 2021 applications for the projects that we talked about a few minutes ago are due by the end of June. So this delegation of authority has to accompany the applications, and that has to be signed in effect by the end of the month. So we'll be requesting that you suspend the rules and act on this next week.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I just have a question. Maybe I misunderstood you, but I thought I had heard you say something about the resolution remaining in force and less rescinded by the city manager, but I was thinking it was city council.
I'm sorry, Counselor, I'm having a hard time hearing you.
I just wanted clarity on the part that you mentioned about that the city attorney added.
The city attorney asked that I introduce the additional language that's shown on the bottom of the sheet that I handed you, that says the resolution designating the city attorney, or excuse me, designated the city manager as the authorized representative, that remain in a force and effect until it's rescinded by the city council.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There's a Scribner's error in number 1, but I have a circle on it. I'll hand it to you when we're done, and I'm sure we can get it fixed.
I had noted it, was going to pass it on to the clerk, so,
Thank you.
thank you.
All right, so we're going to amend what was submitted. So unless there's any questions, can we get that piece of work done first? Anybody? Okay.
I would move to amend our 2022-22 as noted in our version here to add bullet 7 to the effect discussed.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion on the amendment? All in favor? That's unanimous. Any further discussion of this proposal? Do we all understand why we're going to suspend the rules next week? Because this is the first time this has gone on. All right, so motion, please.
Sure. That the Finance, Organization, and Personnel Committee move to recommend that the rescission of Resolution R-2009-08 and the adoption of Resolution R-2022-22 relating to delegation of
Okay.
authorities, what? A, sorry. R-2022-22A relating to delegation of authorities for state revolving fund loans.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion?
Thank you, Mr. Chair.